The rifle's report echoed across the range as the woman, who looked nothing but ordinary, performed a perfect shot, silencing the crowd. What they didn't know was that each bullet carried the weight of her grief, her lost love, and a promise made to a fallen hero nobody recognized, except in the stillness between heartbeats. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. And if you want more stories that touch the light within your heart, like this video, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell. Welcome to In the Heartlight. Let's begin. The crack of a high-powered rifle split the air. The paper target at the far end of the Elite Shooters Club's premier range fluttered as a hole appeared dead center in the bullseye. Applause erupted from the small crowd of spectators gathered behind Jason Radcliffe, the club's most celebrated member and three-time regional champion. "And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how it's done," Jason announced, lowering his custom .308 rifle and flashing his trademark confident smile. At 42, Jason carried himself with the polished assurance that came from a lifetime of privilege. His shooting vest alone cost more than what most people spent on a month's rent. "Another perfect shot, Mr. Radcliffe," said Rebecca Johnson, the club manager, her voice carrying just the right note of admiration. "Will you be joining the others in the clubhouse for drinks?" Jason checked his Rolex. "Wouldn't miss it. Just need to pack up my gear." It was at that moment that the heavy glass doors to the range swung open, and a woman no one recognized stepped inside. She appeared to be in her mid-30s, with auburn hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Her clothing, worn jeans, boots, and a faded blue flannel shirt, stood in stark contrast to the designer attire and technical gear worn by the club's regular patrons. She approached the reception desk with quiet confidence, seemingly oblivious to the stares her presence attracted. "Can I help you?" asked the receptionist, her tone suggesting that help was the last thing she intended to offer. "I'd like to sign in for range time, please," the woman said. The receptionist's perfectly shaped eyebrows arched. "This is a private club, ma'am. Members only or guest passes." "I understand. I called ahead yesterday and spoke with Rebecca Johnson. She said I could come in for a day pass." The woman's voice was soft but clear. "I'm Ellen Miller." The receptionist looked skeptical, but reached for the phone. Before she could make the call, Rebecca Johnson herself appeared from the range area. "Miss Miller? I remember your call. Welcome to Elite Shooters." Rebecca's professional demeanor never wavered, even as Jason Radcliffe approached, eyeing the newcomer with undisguised curiosity. "Picking up strays now, Becca?" Jason's voice carried just enough volume to ensure those nearby could hear. "Thought this place had standards." Ellen glanced at Jason but said nothing, her focus remaining on completing the paperwork Rebecca had placed before her. "Miss Miller requested a day pass to use our facilities, Jason. She mentioned she's getting back into shooting after some time away." Jason laughed. "Getting back into it? What? Did your dear rifle get dusty in Daddy's garage?" He looked Ellen up and down. "The community range across town might be more your caliber." A few of Jason's friends snickered. Ellen finished the paperwork and handed it back to Rebecca. "Which range would you recommend for rifle practice?" Ellen asked, ignoring Jason entirely. "Range 3 has some openings," Rebecca replied. "Will you be using a club rental or your own firearm?" "I brought my own." Ellen patted the modest gun case she carried. Jason's interest seemed piqued. "What are you shooting there?" "A little .22 for plinking cans." Ellen turned to face him directly for the first time. "Remington 700 and .308 Winchester." Jason's eyebrows rose slightly. It was a serious rifle, but his smirk didn't fade. "Tell you what, Flannel Jane, I'll make you a proposition. I'll bet you $10,000 you can't put a shot in the bullseye at 50 yards. The room went quiet. Even Jason's usual entourage seemed surprised by the boldness of the challenge. "I don't gamble," Ellen replied calmly. "Afraid of losing? Can't blame you. That's a lot of money for someone who shops at." He glanced pointedly at her worn boots. Wherever you got those. Ellen studied Jason for a long moment. If I accept your challenge, I'd want any winnings to go to the Veterans Support Foundation. Jason's laugh was sharp. Sure, whatever charity case you want, but when you lose, I expect cash. Rebecca can hold the stakes. Rebecca looked uncomfortable. Jason, I'm not sure this is appropriate. It's fine, Ellen interrupted. I accept the terms, shall we? Jason's grin widened as he gestured toward range 3 with a theatrical bow. After you, Annie Oakley. The small crowd followed, murmuring in anticipation of the spectacle. No one gave Ellen any real chance against Jason Radcliffe. At range 3, Ellen calmly unpacked her rifle. It was a well-used but meticulously maintained Remington 700. Nothing fancy but clearly a trusted tool. Jason watched with growing amusement as she methodically prepared her shooting position. No scope? He asked incredulously, noting the iron sights on her rifle. Not for 50 yards, Ellen replied, settling into position behind the gun. She took a moment to center herself, her breathing slowing visibly. Ellen's entire demeanor changed. Gone was the quiet, unassuming woman who had walked through the door. In her place was someone focused with laser-like intensity. Her posture shifted, her grip on the rifle confident and practiced. When she fired, the sound seemed almost an afterthought to the perfect stillness of her form. There was a moment of silence. Then someone whistled low, as the target return showed a perfect bullseye. Jason's smile faltered but didn't disappear. Beginner's luck, he declared. Triple or nothing says you can't do it 3 more times at 75 yards. Ellen ejected the spent cartridge and looked up. You're proposing a $50,000 bet now? To your precious veterans charity, sure, Jason replied, his voice carrying a new edge. Unless you're having second thoughts. No second thoughts, Ellen said, just making sure I understand the terms. Jason had the range officer set up a fresh target at 75 yards. Ellen reloaded, settled back into position, and fired 3 shots in quick succession, her movements fluid and economical. When the target returned, 3 holes formed a tight cluster dead center in the bullseye. The crowd's reaction was a mixture of stunned silence and scattered applause. Jason's face had turned an interesting shade of red. Who the hell are you? He demanded. Ellen stood, carefully securing her rifle. Just someone getting back into an old hobby. Rebecca stepped forward. I believe that settles the wager, Jason. $50,000 to the Veterans Support Foundation. Wait just a damn minute, Jason sputtered. This was clearly a setup. No one walks in off the street shooting like that. She's probably some kind of pro. I'm not a professional, Ellen said quietly. My husband taught me. Your husband? Jason scoffed. What is he? Some kind of military sniper. A shadow passed over Ellen's face. He was, yes. The past tense hung in the air, changing the atmosphere of the room. 3 years earlier, Ellen Miller had stood stoic in the Arlington rain, watching as an honor guard folded the flag that had draped her husband's casket with ceremonial precision. Master Chief Nathan "Ghost" Miller had been one of the most accomplished SEAL snipers in naval special warfare history, with 4 combat tours and a record that remained partly classified. They had met when Ellen was volunteering at a naval hospital. Nathan was there visiting wounded teammates. Their connection had been immediate and profound. Throughout their 7 years of marriage, he had patiently taught her marksmanship, finding in her a natural talent that impressed even him. You have the stillness, he'd told her once. Most people never find it. You were born with it. After Nathan's death during a classified operation, Emma had packed away her rifles along with their wedding photos. The thought of shooting again brought back too many memories of those calm afternoons on remote ranges. Nathan's steady voice guiding her, his strong hands occasionally adjusting her posture. Each rifle case held not just a weapon, but echoes of laughter, lessons, and love. The last time they'd shot together had been 2 weeks before his final deployment. Something had been different that day. Nathan more focused than usual, pushing her to try increasingly difficult shots. Why the intensity today? She'd finally asked, after he'd set up a particularly challenging course of fire. He'd been quiet for a moment before answering. Because someday, you might need this skill when I'm not around to help. The words had seemed prophetic after receiving the visit from his commanding officer just 3 weeks later. The details were classified, the officer had explained gently. What he could tell her was that Nathan had saved his entire team before the explosion. She might never have returned to shooting if not for the package that arrived 3 months ago from Michael Reeves, Nathan's spotter and best friend. Inside was a letter and Nathan's favorite iron sights, custom made by a gunsmith in Colorado. Nathan always said you were a better natural shot than half the guys in the teams, the letter read. He made me promise that if anything happened to him, I'd make sure these got to you. He'd hate knowing you gave it up. The sights are yours now. Use them. That night, Emma had cried for the first time in months, then retrieved her rifle from storage, remembering Nathan's words about the stillness between heartbeats. As she mounted his sights on her rifle, she felt a connection to him that had been missing since the funeral. Not just grief, but purpose. Back at the Elite Shooters Club, Jason Radcliffe was making calls on his cell phone, stepping away from the group. Ellen calmly packed her rifle as Rebecca approached. That was impressive, Rebecca said. I don't think I've ever seen shooting that precise with iron sights at this club. Thank you, Ellen replied. It's been a while, but some things you don't forget. Rebecca lowered her voice. Listen, about the bet, Jason doesn't like to lose, especially not in front of an audience. Is he going to refuse to pay? Not exactly. But he's going to make this difficult. Rebecca glanced over her shoulder where Jason was returning, his expression now controlled but determined. Just be prepared. Jason rejoined the group, his composure restored. Well, Miss Miller, you've certainly made quite an impression, but I think we need to formalize this little competition to make it official. The wager's been settled, Ellen said. You lost. I'm proposing something more interesting. A real shooting competition, 1 week from today. Multiple stations, various distances, different positions. Jason's smile returned, all predatory confidence. Unless you're afraid you can't replicate today's performance? Ellen studied him. And the stakes? Same as before. $50,000 to your veterans charity if you win. But if I win, you publicly admit you had professional training and that today was a setup. Ellen considered this. The money goes to the charity either way. I just want your word. Of course, Jason said smoothly. I'm a man of my word. As Ellen left the club that afternoon, Rebecca Johnson caught up with her in the parking lot. Miss Miller? Ellen, I should warn you. Jason's not just a good shot, he's connected. His family practically built this town. The competition he's setting up, he'll make sure it favors him. Ellen nodded. I figured as much, but some things are worth standing up for. Your husband, Rebecca ventured carefully. Nathan Miller. Was he Ghost Miller? Ellen's surprise must have shown on her face. My brother served in the Navy, Rebecca explained. He mentioned a SEAL sniper with that call sign once, said he was something of a legend. Yes, Ellen admitted quietly. That was Nathan. Rebecca shook her head. Jason has no idea who he's challenging, but he'll find out soon enough. Jason Radcliffe wasted no time. By that evening, he had a private investigator digging into Ellen Miller's past. By morning, he knew exactly who he was dealing with. The widow of Master Chief Nathan Ghost Miller, Jason explained to his shooting team as they gathered in his expansive home office. 4-time distinguished marksman in the SEALs, holder of the 3rd longest confirmed kill in military history. And he taught her? Asked James, Jason's longtime shooting partner. Apparently. But there's more. Jason pulled up a photograph on his computer. This was taken 3 years ago at the National Rifle Association's charity event. The image showed Ellen standing next to a handsome man in naval dress uniform, both holding trophies. She won the civilian expert division, Jason said. Then she dropped off the competitive circuit completely after he died. "So she sandbagged you," James concluded. "Pretended to be a nobody when she's actually competed at a national level." "Precisely." Jason's jaw tightened, which is why next week's competition needs to be handled carefully. Over the next several days, Jason arranged for the competition to be structured to his advantage. The course of fire would heavily feature shooting scenarios that played to his strengths, moving targets, positional challenges that favored his expensive customized equipment. And for the final stage, Jason told the club's competition committee, which he effectively controlled, "We'll use the Macmillan TAC 338 rifles. Long-range precision at 500 yards. The committee chairman frowned. "That's an extremely specific requirement, Jason. Not everyone has access to that caliber or familiarity with that platform." "Exactly the point," Jason replied with a thin smile. "This is supposed to be a test of comprehensive skill, not just basic marksmanship." Meanwhile, Ellen was preparing in her own way. After Jason's challenge, she had reached out to Nathan's old unit. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Commander Wilson, Nathan's former CO, met her at a private range outside of town. "When Reeves told me you were shooting again, I was glad to hear it," the weathered commander said as they set up targets. "Nathan always said you had a gift." "I'm rusty," Ellen admitted. "And this guy at the club, he's making sure the competition favors him." Wilson smiled. "Nathan didn't just teach you to shoot under ideal conditions, he taught you to adapt." He opened a large case, revealing several rifles. "Let's make sure you're ready for whatever this civilian throws at you." For 5 days, Ellen trained intensively. News of the competition had spread through the tight-knit special operations community, and several of Nathan's former teammates appeared to help. They drilled her on unconventional shooting positions, moving targets, and stress shoots designed to elevate her heart rate. "Jason's got the Macmillan TAC 338 as the final weapon," Ellen told Wilson on the day before the competition. "Of course he does," Wilson replied with a knowing smile. "Rich boy's toy? Good thing you've got about 300 rounds through Nathan's old one." He patted a long case, "which I happen to have right here." The day of the competition arrived with unexpected fanfare. Word had spread beyond the club, and a substantial crowd had gathered to watch. Jason had made sure local media was present, confident in his eventual victory and the public relations value it would provide. What Jason hadn't expected was the quiet presence of over a dozen men and women with military bearings scattered throughout the audience. They nodded respectfully to Ellen as she arrived, but said nothing. The competition consisted of 5 stations of increasing difficulty. Jason maintained a slight lead through the first 3, his familiarity with the club's layout and the specific challenges giving him an edge. Ellen remained focused, her performance solid but not spectacular. At the 4th station, involving rapid target transitions with a pistol, Ellen noticed something odd about the equipment provided to her. The sight seemed slightly off, the trigger pull heavier than standard. She adapted quickly, remembering Nathan's lessons about shooting with compromised equipment, and managed to stay within striking distance of Jason's score. "Having trouble with the club guns?" Jason asked with false concern as they moved to the final station. He seemed to be struggling a bit. Ellen met his gaze evenly. "I'm doing fine, thank you." The final stage featured the Macmillan TAC 338 rifles that Jason had specified. The targets were set at 500 yards, with variable wind conditions adding to the challenge. Jason went first, settling behind the custom rifle with practiced ease. His shots were excellent, 5 rounds, forming a tight group just off-center of the bullseye. As Ellen prepared to take her position, she felt a calm settle over her. She had noticed one of Nathan's old teammates quietly speaking with the range officer, who subsequently looked carefully at Ellen's rifle. When Ellen took her position behind the Macmillan, she immediately sensed that something was wrong. The scope's zero had been altered. Rather than protesting, she made a quick mental calculation for the correction needed, and proceeded. Her first shot struck just outside the bullseye. Ellen adjusted slightly, and her second shot hit dead center. The next 3 shots formed a tight cluster around the second, creating a pattern noticeably better than Jason's. The final scores were tallied. Ellen had won by a narrow margin. Jason's face went rigid with anger. "This is ridiculous. There's clearly been some kind of interference." Before he could continue his protest, the range officer stepped forward. "Actually, Mr. Radcliffe, we have a situation that needs addressing. Our security team noticed some unusual activity on the ranges last night." He held up a tablet showing security footage. "This appears to show your assistant tampering with equipment designated for today's competition." The footage clearly showed James adjusting the sights on the pistol Ellen had been assigned and making alterations to the scope on the Macmillan. The crowd murmured as Jason's face drained of color. Furthermore, the range officer continued, "A thorough inspection of the rifles shows that the scope on Ms. Miller's assigned rifle had been deliberately miscalibrated." Rebecca Johnson stepped forward. "The club takes these violations extremely seriously, Jason. This constitutes attempted fraud, given the financial stakes involved." Commander Wilson emerged from the crowd. "As a witness to the original wager in today's competition, I think we can all agree that Ms. Miller has won fairly, despite the attempts to sabotage her performance." Jason looked around, suddenly aware of the many military personnel present. His usual confidence crumbled. "This is a private club matter." "It's also a matter of honor," Wilson interrupted calmly, "something the military community takes very seriously." In the end, Jason had no choice. Not only did he pay the promised $50,000 to the Veterans Support Foundation, but after consulting with his lawyers about the potential legal consequences of the attempted sabotage, he agreed to a settlement that doubled the donation and included a public apology. The publicity from the event had an unexpected benefit for Ellen. The Veterans Support Foundation offered her a position developing a marksmanship training program for veterans struggling with the transition to civilian life. "Your husband was a legend among us," the foundation's director told her. "But what impressed everyone most was how you handled yourself, with dignity and skill, even when the deck was stacked against you. That's exactly the kind of resilience we want to instill in our veterans." 6 months later, Ellen stood at the opening of the foundation's new training facility. A simple plaque on the wall read, "The Nathan Ghost Miller Excellence in Marksmanship Scholarship." As she watched the first group of veterans begin their training, Ellen felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced since Nathan's death. She had found a way to honor his memory while helping others find their own path forward. That evening, as she cleaned her rifle with the methodical care Nathan had taught her, Ellen smiled at the framed photo of her husband on the wall. "You always said the stillness was where you found yourself," she whispered. "I think I finally understand what you meant." The next day at the range, she would continue Nathan's legacy, not just teaching marksmanship, but the focus, discipline, and inner calm that had defined both his life and his love for her. In finding her way back to shooting, Ellen had found herself again, and a new way to carry forward the light her husband had brought into the world. As for Jason Radcliffe, the incident had changed him too. The humbling experience of being outshot by Ellen, coupled with the public exposure of his attempted cheating, forced him to reconsider his approach to competition and to life. 6 months later, he contacted Ellen with a surprising request to join the foundation's board and help expand its programs nationwide. "I've learned that true marksmanship isn't about expensive equipment or winning at all costs," he admitted. "It's about integrity, discipline, and respect for the craft, things I lost sight of somewhere along the way." Ellen accepted his offer, recognizing that redemption was also part of the legacy Nathan would have wanted to leave behind. The understanding that even the most accurate shot is meaningless without the character to support it. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more stories from In the Heartlight. And don't forget to check out the videos currently on your screen. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.